are here to celebrate the release of his fantastic book, which is called Beware of Friendly Danger. He has a very, very interesting story in that at 11 years old, he met a swimming coach, actually, who was starting a Pentecostal church. And the swimming coach he trusted as a mentor, as a very strong male influence in his life. And he then was inducted into what could only really be called a cult over the years. And through much of his young adult life, he helped Scott Williams grow this church into a very large organization. And Gunther had to become a survivor. He really was put under incredible mental and physical abuse as part of this cult. And he has transitioned his own life into one of great success. He's a successful businessman. He helps a lot of other people with their mental and emotional issues to help them have breakthroughs. And he's the father of several successful children and has a life partner. And so, Gunther, what are your amazing success tips that you've learned over the years in order to transition your own life from one of being really a victim of life into being a victor of life?
Yeah, Cydney, I think the most important that the past cannot be changed. So we can change nothing which we have experienced in our past. And the sooner we realize that that is the case, and that we have to make decisions always right in the present, so that will then change a lot. And so for me, the present has become the most important moment in my life, because every decision I make will determine what will happen in the future. And that has been an incredible way for me to go forward. So to be empowered, I have to and had to learn that the past you cannot change, but you are able to make decisions which are now in the present, which will determine the future. So empowering your future, you have to make the right decisions right now, and that is what matters. So for me, time has become more like an illusion. And an illusion, time can't change the past. You cannot know what the future brings, but you can influence it by your present decisions. Have I lost you, Cydney?
Yes, our signal is not great. I'm sorry about that. So I've actually turned my video off because I'm hoping that'll improve the quality of the video. So
okay.
Tell us a little bit about what's been happening since you launched your book. You've been on the radio. You've had a book launch.
Yes, I have had several book launches, and it's been amazing. Firstly, of course, the book launch which you organized, and I'm very grateful for being in Los Angeles and having my first book launch of my first book, and I say my first book, and that was a success in itself. But coming back to Perth here in Australia has been just fantastic. So I've had a book launch which was received by family, friends, and I also had the local paper coming along. So I should be, and I will be in the local paper actually either this week or next week, an article written about my book. And at the same time, I also was approached by Curtin FM 100.1 and have had an interview and an interest by the radio station, which is one of the largest here in Western Australia. And I had an interview with Jenny Seaton, who used to work for Channel 9 for many years. And she's now with Curtin FM for the last 8 years and does a lot of talks and back talks and interviews. And I was privileged to spend 20 minutes in the studio talking about the book and about what has happened, my story, but also the successes. That means going forward, how you can change and turn your life around. And that was amazing. So just in the last few weeks, because it was only 4 weeks ago when we actually, or 5 weeks ago, when we came back from America. So lots has happened since I spent the time with you in the US.
Yeah, we had a great time. We went to Elton John's Oscar party and celebrated there, and it was very exciting. I got to be with you when your first box of books arrived, and see the joy of actually seeing it in print, your story in print, after all the work of writing your story out. So tell us, when you first left the cult, what was it like to have to put your life back together? It must have been so difficult when you were used to being in a particular environment and then having to become, I guess, a member of an alternate society, the one that most of us live in. What was that like?
It's hard to explain and probably hard to understand for people who have not spent that much and wherever in a circumstance where everything was controlled. So for me, leaving the cult was leaving an environment where I was actually comfortable in, meaning I knew everything because everything was stipulated, from how you eat, how you dress, what you do, what you not do. So it became, for me, I needed to learn how to actually communicate with people, with Joe Bloke and anybody else on the road. What seems to be normal for people, when you go on the road or you go down in a restaurant, I did not know how to actually communicate appropriately, properly, because I was like a fish without the water suddenly. And I found it extremely, extremely difficult to assimilate myself into a normal day's life. Meaning, making and getting a job, talking and knowing what is expected, not, and how to communicate with anybody, because all I knew was from a very young age, from the age of when I joined the cult at the age of 14, all I knew for 26 years how to behave in that environment. So I found it extremely challenging and difficult, but yet I had the desire and I wanted to turn my life around, and that made me find ways to do that.
And for you, a big turning point was becoming an master NLP practitioner. Is that right?
It was a huge yes. A master NLP practitioner, or a linguistic programming coach. Before that, I read and I have gone through counseling, so psychiatrists and counselors. I have done a lot of self-development courses and also read a lot of books. But my breakthrough I really encountered was when I got in touch with the NLP, so the Neuro-Linguistic Programming system or program. And that changed my life totally around, because I suddenly had tools in a toolbox which I never had before to change my behavior, my way of thinking, my way of behaving, and the way going forward, which I always wanted to, but I just found extremely hard before I had those tools, which I needed to learn to accelerate in what I do now. So that's definitely has been an amazing journey, and this has, I would say, Cydney, actually, it has sort of saved my bacon. If that is the appropriate English saying, that means it really lived my life.
Yeah.
And turn it around.
Sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it turned it around. So that means when I started to change my language, it started to change my behavior. So my mindset and then my behavior, and that was amazing for me to encounter. And suddenly I could integrate and have success, which I did not know that it can actually exist and can be happening for me. Made me very happy.
Course, like so many people who study neuro-linguistic programming, you realize that you could help others and have been helping others to come out of depression, anxiety, marital discord, and all that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. And, most of the people who heard my story and most of the clients, actually, I've mostly actually male clients. I would say 70 to 80% of my clients are actually male clients and have gone through trauma when they were very young. And also the female clients who have gone through amazing hardship and trauma, specifically when they were also younger or a bit older in their lives, but they come and we can use and utilize those tools and change their lives around, just like it has helped me. I'm now on the other side, helping others. So those clients where I thought once upon a time found myself being a client, knowing where they are, now knowing also what it can do when you know the right tools to help the people, then that is inspiring, and I've had amazing results. The people are just, become like myself, the happiest people on earth. You suddenly change those anxiety, the trauma, the negative emotions you have dealt and have had in your life for so long, and they were hanging on, and you could not be yourself, and suddenly you turned around and become someone which you always wanted to be, but you did not know how. And when you have the tools, wow, what a change, what a difference. And that is, where I concentrate. A lot of people who have been through mental, physical, and sexual abuse, and then gone through those traumas, and then have a change around and can start a new life, new relationship, A, with themselves, and B, also, becoming a better be themselves, but also then having an incredible impact with either partners, family, with their own children.
Yes, I studied NLP, and I found that it really improved my relationship with my family and with my ex-husband, my children. I think it's a really wonderful study of human psychology, NLP. So I'm a big fan myself. So let's focus on your top success tips. I asked you to pull some of your best advice out of your book, and number one, you've shared with us to just let go of the past. The past cannot be changed.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So move into living in the present and acknowledging that the future is in your power. That's where you can really, the only place you can make change is in your future. So that was your top tip. Thank you for that. Tell us your second top tip.
Okay, so I call it the 4 C's. So and a lot of people actually, when they look at the 4 C's, are a little hesitant because a lot of people are a little afraid of changes, but or jumping into certain chances or challenges. So, but my focus is on my success, and this is what I say is, with changes comes challenges, and with those challenges comes chances. And when you have chances, with chances come different choices. So when you have that, suddenly choices, you're actually able to create your own chapter. So when somebody has and realizes there, a change is something positive, a change in your life is a good thing, then you may come across certain challenges for any change to occur, but those challenges create multiple chances in your life. And if you suddenly have chances in your life, you're then increasing the choices you can from those chances which you then have in front of you to create and just try what works for you. Not everything, what I always find, works for everybody. So there's not one formula which works, because we're all individuals, we're all beautiful people. And because we then have choices in our life and creating those choices and we're trying them out, then there is never any kind of failure, because failure is just what we can learn. That means a choice in life we've made, and maybe then one of those choices we may not, doesn't fit for us, that we then have learned of what we not need to do or should be doing, which works for us or not for us. And therefore we can then create again something wonderful in your life. So that is my second tip for people, that we have the 4 C's, which can be quite a challenge, and yet those changes and those challenges create chances. And how good is it when you have more choices, and then you can grow it with taking those choices under your belt and learn.
So with change, obviously what happens is you end up with, as you say, chances and choices. And I think this is probably where it's really helpful to have a mentor, someone like you, a coach, because we don't always have confidence. That's another C for you. We don't always have confidence about which choices we should be making, right? Like, change, one of the things that's really challenging about change is we only know what hasn't worked for us. We can draw on what has worked on some level, but where we need her help a lot of the time is making new choices towards achieving a new life, which of course is completely unknown to us, right?
Totally, I totally agree. That is where other people are then opening doors of choices. And those choices we often are not aware. And therefore a mentor, someone you then can learn, or that person can point you to the different choices, to those different doors or avenues or pathways. That makes it so much more important that we actually are interlinked and we do need each other. And I've got mentors in my life. Without them, I wouldn't be where I'm here today, because they have given me choices, have asked me questions of which I never thought of. And that created for me so many more avenues. And I can only say the most important thing is you need to create something around you, and the choices are created by the people who may have gone through before you and gone through similar situations, and they can help you to find out what choice or what avenues is working for you, or is there for you to make those changes. Yes.
Great. And I will say at this point, if people want to work with you or they want to talk to you further, they can go to your website, right?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, which is www.masteryourmindset.com.au, or they also can call me on my mobile. I always, happy to have a chat. I'm a very, person who loves talking to people, chatting and finding out. And that's 0431 496 766. So I'm always there, and I believe that is the most important thing, to build that relationship, that rapport. Sometimes also not every coach is for everybody, but if it is not for me to say, we can work together, this has to be a mutual for both. Occasionally I had actually clients which I have referred on because I felt that another coach or another person I know would be a better match. And that is so important, that we have that networking and we work together and see and find out what is the best for each person.
Great. Now, what's your tip number 3?
My tip number 3 is focus on what you want and not on what you do not want. And that is, and I'll repeat this again, a lot of people focus on the things they do not want. But our unconscious mind does not, for example, adjust or receive anything which is of negatives. So it doesn't process negatives, our unconscious mind. So when I would, for example, say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, you're thinking probably now of a pink elephant, and I'm trying not to think of that pink elephant. But because our unconscious mind does not process the negatives. And a lot of people focus on what they do not want. They don't want to have a bad relationship. They don't want to have that happen to them. But because they are having and focus on what they not want, the unconscious mind does not create or understand the negatives. They're actually creating and saying that they do want to have a bad relationship, or they do want something bad happen to them. That is the unconscious mind, and therefore people have to change and focus on what they want. And this is where NLP, the neuro, and this is the linguistic part, where people have to change their language and focus and create and say what they want in their life. So that is immensely important. And I have been one of those people who have had, when I was in the cult, I didn't want that to happen to me, and every time it happened. When I changed this around to my language, it actually changed then my mindset, and that was amazing. Suddenly, I got involved in one of the most, in a beautiful relationship, not just with a new partner, but with my children, because I focused on the things which I suddenly wanted, and that also for business. I, focused on what I want, and that created, and also with the book I wrote, I wanted it. And I've always then, therefore, focused on what I want, and that then came to path. So a huge motivation, hopefully, for everybody is to see, which was for me, once I focused on what I wanted, I got it. So you have to focus on that and not what you not want, and rephrase that and reframe it.
I completely agree with you. I find that, so that actually goes along with your tip number 2, which is, of course, picking, making some choices and some choices to change, and then setting yourself in that direction by focusing on achieving what you've decided that you want your life to look like, or what your life to be. I'm always amazed at how well this works when you put it into play. This is how we ended up at Elton John's Oscar party with all the celebrities. And I remember at one point, I decided that I wanted to go on the Oprah show, and I started telling people that was one of my goals. And really quickly, within months, somebody was organizing for it to happen for me. Now, I wasn't emotionally ready, and I kind of pulled out of it. But I think it just shocked me how quickly these things can come to pass, even things that you would think would be extraordinarily impossible. Do you agree?
Yes, yeah. I totally agree. And as we just talked before, I came back and I said, this is what I want. And also with the book, when we went to Los Angeles and when I came back with the book launch. And I even said to my friend when I was still actually in America, I says, my first thing I like to do is when I come back, I have the book launch, I like to actually be with Jenny Cydney, who I listen to all the time. I would like to be with her on the radio. And believe it or not, as we just spoke, it didn't even take 24 hours. She came back to me and said, this is what I wanted. And she never met me, never heard of me. I wrote back immediately. I actually forgot to put my phone number underneath, and she said, give me your phone number. So we had a chat. She gave me her personal private mobile number, and she wants to stay in touch and be updated with the book and also other results, because I'll be televised very soon on another ABC series in Australia, which is called You Can't Ask That. So I totally agree. Suddenly, when you say what you want, it will come to pass. And that is wonderful. But you've got to focus on what you want and not what you don't want.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I think, of course, obviously, it helped that you, first of all, you focused on getting that book finished. So getting that book written. You sat down and you pounded that book out in just a few weeks. You got your entire life story told in just a few weeks in your book. And we had a crazy deadline because we wanted to release it in LA at our trip. So we got it published in time, and then you started using it. To your credit, you started reaching out to people as a published author and saying to people, I'd like to be on your show. And so you had positioned yourself properly. But that all aligns with that focus, focusing on achieving your goals and then taking action towards your, and now you're going to be on TV again because you've been on TV before. So congratulations. And then you immediately put some book launches into place, which again, started getting you in front of a lot more people. And of course, the more people who know, the more people can introduce you to others, and it starts to spread with momentum. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So what's your tip number 4?
My tip number 4. So my tip number 4 is that I may have been victimized, but I'm not a victim. So I may have been victimized, but I'm not a victim. And a lot of people have that victim mentality, which I was one of them. Poor me, this has happened. I was so young. How on earth could this happen to me? Why me? Why me? Why me? And so I needed to really understand when I did that, I gave my power to somebody else. I let somebody else be in the driver's seat. And to take back that control, I needed to understand that I may have been victimized, but I'm not a victim. And that's, again, leading back to probably number 2 of a choice. But yet saying this, I needed to understand that I am needing to be in control. If I wanted to drive my own car, then I needed to understand that all of us in the world, and the sooner we know that, we're all going through and have any kinds of, problems or issues, or have gone through any kind of, I would say, there is all kinds of problems in our world, emotional issues, but also financial difficulties, trauma, whatever it might be. But if one understands, as soon as we are staying in the victimized situation and we have secondary gain, poor you, poor me, poor this, and you are not taking control, then nothing will change. And that is what I needed to understand. I needed to finally get out after a couple of years or a few years after I had left. You come into that little bit of self-pity, the opportunities, yes. Will I ever make it to become a businessman? Will I ever, I haven't had the right start. But that was because I was feeling victimized and was in that attitude of feeling sorry for myself. Once I took control and understood I may have victimized, but I'm not a victim, then things have changed incredibly. And I'm so glad that I'm driving my own bus now.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And I know from spending time with you that you really do you have such a joy of life now. You're such a delight to be with. Even when you're around other people who are stressing out, you have this lightness about you and this ability to lift everyone's spirits. So congratulations. You've really turned your life around.
No, it has been, I probably could say, I'm the happiest person on planet Earth. I appreciate, because I appreciate so much of what I have now, meeting people like yourself and so many lovely people around the place and enjoying those moments. And you making it possible for me, writing the book in 5 weeks and having it published and being in Los Angeles. I am so thankful and grateful for people like yourself and so many others in my life now that I cannot say anything else than I am the happiest person every time and every moment I get up. I count my blessings. And you're one of them, Cydney.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Gunther. So, okay, now tip number 5.
That was probably a hard one for me. But if you want to be successful, and that means for me, the biggest success is by having a relationship with yourself. And that starts, my success number 5 is loving yourself, forgiving yourself, accepting yourself, and then be yourself and not someone else. And that means I needed to learn to look into the mirror and love myself. And then going through all those emotions and forgiving myself. Because I, in my lifetime, have done a lot of things sincerely wrong, but also hurt the people, probably the people I loved most, I hurt most because of the circumstances I was in. I was an emotional yo-yo. And I didn't love myself. I didn't accept myself. I felt all the guilt, the sadness, the hatred. And until I started to look into the mirror and started to have a relationship with myself and started to love myself for who I am, and to forgive myself, and then accepting of who I am, then everything has turned around. And then that is probably also why I'm now extremely happy, outgoing, and I embrace everybody and anybody, because being yourself and not someone else is probably the best thing you can do. Don't try, because if you try to be somebody else, then you probably need to love that somebody else, and that you can never do until you find out who you are. So that self-love, that self-forgiveness and self-acceptance has been an extremely successful turn for me, and I believe anybody else who produces and does that will get the same results.
Thank you. And tip number 6.
Yes, tip number 6. So this is very simple, and yet probably one of the most effective things. It's a bit of a summary of what we've spoken about, but change your words, change your actions, change your behavior. It starts with your language. You need to start to change the way you speak. It is the way I speak to myself. Even your self-talk has to change. When you change your self-talk, and I think all of us, and probably you would agree, Cydney, we all talk to ourselves. When we look in the mirror or when we go somewhere, we often talk to ourselves. When we meet new people or we do something, we maybe doubt ourselves, and we need to learn to doubt our doubts and we are very critical. And therefore, it starts with how you talk to yourself, and then how you then phrase when you talk to others. And then you need to change your actions, meaning the actions, your way of how you act, A, towards yourself, but B, also to each one around you. So changing your actions, meaning it's got to turn out to be in a practical way. When you do that, then you will change your behavior. And your behavior is something we all want to change. And they actually change over the years. I'm not the same person as I was last year. I'm not the same person behave as I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I'm not going further because I'm not that old. However, saying that is where we need to change our behavior. And it starts with you and how you speak to yourself. So that is extremely important. And then you've got to take actions. If you're not taking actions, you will not produce the behavior which creates who you really want to be and what you want to achieve. And that is, the behaviors of success, the behaviors of love, the behaviors of being the person who you want to be and to create being with others. So that is my success number 6.
Wonderful. And I do agree with you. Are you a fan of affirmations? Do you ever do affirmations or get your clients to do them?
Oh, totally. Yes, Cydney. Affirmations are, it's like second nature to me. So anything, yes, affirmations. So they are extremely, extremely important in anybody's life. And they have been extremely important to be who I am today. And I use it and do it all the time, every day.
Yeah, I find them to be very powerful. I had a friend to help me come up with some affirmations, one of my clients, on helping me. I had been offered an opportunity to go speak in front of a huge audience, about 2,000 people in India. And I was a bit nervous about it because I hadn't spoken in front of such a big audience. And so she said, I know these are going to feel silly, but so I started doing affirmations like, I am a vivacious and entertaining international public speaker. So when I first started saying them, I felt very uncomfortable. But I completely agree with you. Your subconscious mind embraces it. You say it enough times, your subconscious mind really kind of believes it. And the next thing I knew, I was on the stage in India, and they asked me to do a motivational speech. And I was up there making them laugh, getting them. I became a vivacious international public speaker. So it's really quite powerful how you can trick your subconscious mind into doing things that you wouldn't have thought was possible.
Absolutely, and those affirmations are extremely important. I said you use them in public speaking, you can use them in your relationships, in your business to be successful. So, and as you just said again, the unconscious mind does not recognize. And because of the neurons, which is not just only in your head, which you have, the neurons are through your whole body. So actually, when you talk like this and these affirmations actually then are getting produced, not just through your speech, but through your gesture, through your whole mannerism, and the way you are then, as you said, engaged in that audience. So when you do that, that has a whole effect, not just in your speech, but it affects your whole body, your whole way of you then communicate, of your behaviors. And that is amazing. And that is the total change of people saying, is it really that easy? Yes, it is really that easy. However, easy means you've got to repeat it and you've got to do it again and again and again. And I find a lot of people find it when I go through those success, like we've just speaking about, that they give up, or they think, oh, well, this is not going to work, or they're only going to do it for a very short period of time. And because they don't, in this present day is a push button society, they don't see the results within 3 days. Oh, well, it's not working for me. I think this is where the mind has to change for the people, and seeing the results are, and you've got to keep going at it until you see the results, because they will be there. And however, a lot of people, and we mentioned that before, the time, my first point is that everything you do must be in the present. You live in the moment. Time is only an illusion. It doesn't exist. And therefore, when you do it, then if you do it for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, it doesn't matter. You will have the results and success like you have seen in your own life. And I see it with my clients and, of course, in myself.
Wonderful. Thank you. And success tip number 7.
Well, break old habits and create new habits. I used to be a personal trainer and had my own business for a number of years. And I always said to the people, you've got to break your old habits and create new habits. And that is the case which we all have. We have old habits, old behaviors, but the habits which we need to break. And I always say this also now in my coaching, in my breakthrough coaching. And when I set goals in business coaching, then I always say your old habits are broken within 21 days. New habits are created within 21 days. So in 42 days, you are going to be a total new person with new habits. So, and I can guarantee that. I have seen these guarantees in the physical realm. That means when people changed their training or their physical training or their eating and healthy eating habits. And then I have seen it now also in the emotional way and realm. And that is amazing because you spend that time, and what is 42 days to, have total new habits in your life? It's nothing in comparison to your life of then creating and being. So for me, it's break the old habits and create new habits. So that means identify the old negative emotions, habits, beliefs, then establish the positive ones. So that is my success number 7.
Thank you. And success tip number 8.
So take responsibility for your actions. I need to learn to take responsibility for my own actions, no matter what they are. And Cydney, for me, it was like when I started to take responsibility for who I am and what I do. And that means even if I have, you make mistakes, but you need to own it. And a lot of people are often in their way of, blaming or a circumstance or a situation, blaming something which may not be always the right way. So when you take responsibility for your own actions, and no matter what they are, and you own it. And sometimes that also includes you've got to say, I've done it maybe incorrect or not right, and you've got to apologize. There's nothing wrong because you own it. And you can only own it when you take responsibility. So that ownership comes when you take responsibility of every action you are personally responsible for. So that is, it means you own it. You do not blame others. And as I said before, failure is only a learning curve. Failure does not exist. For me, the word failure actually doesn't exist. For me, failure means the same word as a new learning. So every time I would see something I do, and some people would say, well, you failed in that. And I said, no, I have a new learning, which I have and will add to my list. And that is, I won't do that again. Therefore, it has been an extremely good learning curve. So now I know what I should be doing and how I can do it better. But you can only do that when you take responsibility. And that is, I am responsible for whatever I have done and whatever I do. And when you have that spirit of responsibility, then I often say we've got 2 ears to hear and 1 mouth to speak. So sometimes we need to listen twice before we speak once. And that is when you have responsibility, you really take it serious of how you communicate to other people. You don't, just say something and that could hurt them, but you really want to make a difference, a positive impact in people's lives. And if we would take that a little bit more seriously, then I think this place and planet Earth would be a much better place. So take actions, yes, but you've got to take responsibility for those actions.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you. And that all goes along with, are you going to live as a victim or are you going to the only thing you can change is how you respond to things and situations, right? You can't change other people. So if you accept responsibility, even if it's not obvious where you're responsible, then you at least are empowered to have different results in the future.
Absolutely. You empower, and that is something which is marvelous and wonderful, because at the end of the day, you want to have the positive results. You can only own the positive results if you take ownership, and that means ownership only can come when you take responsibility for the actions, on whatever they may be. And it doesn't matter, the consequences are, we often don't know until we have done what we've done, and we can only learn from those. But then I take actions, and that means I am never afraid to say sorry for anything I may have done not right or have said. So if somebody would say that to me and say, well, that hurt me, I'm the first person who would admit and say, I'm sorry, or this is, I didn't mean it that way. I take responsibility, and by that, you actually create something, an ownership. And it's something wonderful, because it creates other opportunities again, which I have encountered in my life, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I find that if I notice certain things that keep going wrong in my business, because business really challenges you. So if I notice that there's certain repeating patterns, I will say, what do I need to change to stop this happening in the future? So again, it's that whole taking responsibility. Even if you think, well, I keep hiring these people and they keep making the same mistake, then what's the common denominator? Well, I'm the common denominator. So the only thing that I can change is to put better systems in place, or to make sure that we've all got a better understanding, so that we get the result that I'm after, rather than just complaining and making the same mistake over and over. So I completely agree with you. And what number are we up to? We up to number 8?
Number 9. Number 9.
Number 9. What is number 9?
So number 9 is, one may not be able to change the circumstance, but one is always in charge of one's attitude. Now, we cannot change the circumstance often in our lives, because we don't have the influence. So the environment, we're often not in charge of. But we're always, and can always be, and should always be, always in charge of our attitude, of how we act or react to any of the circumstance. And that is, we can be in a very bad situation, be put in, if that is in a business circumstance, or in a relationship, or even on the streets. Things do happen, and bad things do happen, and bad things also do happen to good people. However, saying that, the circumstance you may not be able to control, but one thing you can always control, and that is your attitude of how you will react towards that circumstance. And that can make all the difference. I've been in for example, and I do quite a number of couple relationship counseling as well. And I always tell people, when they get into an argument, just try these. Say somebody wants to look for that little bit of an argument or a fight in a relationship. Smile at them when they do, and give them and react totally the opposite. If somebody says that and you say, well, I do love you, and you give them a smile, actually the wind is taken out of any argument. And what I'm trying to say is, the attitude you display, no matter what, at any given time, to any circumstance, will, in that moment, determine the result again. And you are in charge of that. And that is wonderful if you realize how good is that. I am in charge of my attitudes at all times, even if I then not in that circumstance, but because of my attitude, I will change that circumstance. So I find this, I've done this and do that technique many, many times. Probably unbelievable. I've been in my relationship for now 8 years with my partner, and we haven't had an argument. I need to find some wood now and knock somewhere. But yes, it's just because of those techniques, because you're in charge of your attitude.
And did you used to react to people? Did you used to sort of like have a temper or maybe, you know?
I was terrible. I yo-yo. I was in English probably a angry bastard. I could not cope with a lot of the situations because being abused for that many years, mentally, physically, and sexually, has made me totally unstable. And I could often not act or react the way I would say are appropriate in any manners and mannerisms. So I was very frustrated, lived under depression, anxiety, and I was a very angry person because I did not do those success steps which we discussed today. Didn't love myself. I hated myself. And therefore, people weren't always very happy around me because I did not control my emotions. I did not control my attitudes. And I blamed the circumstance. I blamed the people or a person, and maybe sometimes even God, for who I was. But however, that is not who I really was. But until I found the techniques which work for me to be in control at all given times, then I have had success in business as well as in my relationships. And that goes with my children as well. So, my children would testify. I've got 5 beautiful children. They would testify, to say, Dad, you have come such a long way from being a pretty angry dad many times to being a dad, approachable, loving, caring, and I have them around me, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Wonderful.
And I believe if I can turn it around, anyone else can.
Thank you. So inspiring. And that leads us into tip number 10.
Yes. So importantly, in all our lives, Cydney, and I think that's something we all should do a lot more, surround yourself with positivity. So anything which is positive in your life, like it is in my life, and that creates, like, for example, people, but the environment, that can be whatever your hobbies are. For me, it is reading books, going on my motorbike for rides, being on my boat, spending time with my friends, my family. But on top of it, specifically, create a positive environment. So delete anything which is negative. And that also includes people which are negative or have a negative influence in your life. So some of my friends, I had to say, goodbye. It's nice to have you as a friend. But because of their negative influence on my life, I had to say, no, even in business, I had to say, no, I cannot. Because if I do hang around you, then it's like, those negativity and negative points jump onto you. And it's very hard to then be yourself and be always positive. So I create a positive environment around me at all given times. Whatever I do, that means I got to be positive, but yet at the same time, I'm seeking what is positive at anything in my life, which makes me happy and which creates success. So I hang out with successful business people. I hang out with successful friends, and that means also people who have the same interest and hobbies. And that gives me the environment of positivity. And that's an energy which you then carry into all other relationships. If that is in your business, if you want to be a more positive environment creating in your business or in your family, then this is what you need to start doing. Hang out and create and be and surround yourself with positivity.
Wonderful. Now, if people want to read your book, Beware of Friendly Danger, and I will start my video again so I can hold it up. And you're going to have to, as a published author now, you're going to have to get used to always having your book with you so that you can hold it up for whenever you do an interview.
That is a really good point.
A success habit. So this is Gunther's book, and it's Beware of Friendly Danger. And it is on Amazon and Kindle. You can go and order a copy. We would love you to post a review. Amazon reviews are super important for us with getting momentum for book sales. So if you would go and grab a copy of the book, you'll find it is a fascinating read. And just if you could kindly post a review, hopefully you'll enjoy the book and you'll want to write a good review, because those help us very much. And I just want to thank you so much for being such a delight to work with, such a delight to have around, and congratulate you on your fantastic successes so far. And I know that it's just going to be boom, boom, boom from here.
Yes, thank you, Cydney. No, absolutely. And thanks for being who you are and helping and assisting to reach, for those clouds. Because, yeah, I wouldn't be here where I am now without you. So thank you so much, Cydney.
And tell me, before we end the interview, would you recommend that people who've got a dream to write a book, what would be your tips? What do you think it was? I know you're very, very happy you did it. If somebody's thinking about writing a book, what would be your advice for getting it done? Because you did a great job. You did it really fast.
I had 5 weeks, and Dr. Jason recommended me to you. And my recommendation is to take someone who knows what to do, like Cydney. And I couldn't have done it with people with that experience, and you've got a lot of experience. So you and your team, so I'm thinking you and your team, who have created this happen. I couldn't have done it by myself. And that is what, made all the difference for me. You putting me down, this is the time frame you have. This is the time limit you have. This is what your goal is. This is what you have to achieve. And you guiding me through step by step, creating and making it happen. I'm prepared and I followed your advice all the way. And that's what I would recommend anybody else. And, we often try to do it ourselves. I don't know why we often are that stupid, or me, myself, pushing it and pushing it. I was pushing this book for a number of years, Cydney, and only until I got in touch and Jason got me in touch with you. That was no more excuses. You can do it, and you're not alone. There are people who know what they're doing, and they help you to achieve your goal. So sign up and do it, because it's worth doing, and the result is fantastic. I'm extremely happy.
Yes, I think it's just all the same thing. If you're finding it's a bit of a struggle to do something that you've never done before, get a mentor, get somebody who can help pull you along, pull you through the process. And, and just they've already been through those hurdles. They know how to overcome them. And thank you so much for that. And thank you for spending the time with us. And everybody go and grab a copy of the book. And how can they get access to your interviews with the media? You have several interviews with the media. I think you have some of them on your website. That's your. Give us your website again.
So it's www.masteryourmindset.com.au, and you find a documentary from Four Corners, ABC Four Corners, televised in July 2014. And this year in June will be another ABC television on where we'll be on, and that is on the ABC You Can't Ask That. So it'll be televised, and what I heard in an episode this year, so it's not long to go. And then, I've got a few other things in the pipeline, but I'll keep that for a later stage.
Wonderful.
Book can also be bought here at some Dimmicks bookstores. So Perth actually is having my book in some of the bookstores as well, which is fantastic.
Terrific. Congratulations. Very, very exciting. Well, congratulations. Thank you again for your time. And I'm going to stop the recording, but everybody go over and grab a copy of the book. And I hope you enjoyed the interview.